Well, hey there. So we're going to do a headband, or in my case it'll be a headband and combination neck warmer if I pull it down, because I like to have the versatility. And we're going to do it in cobblestone stitch. And the yarn I'm using is Creative Melange Chunky, and it's so light I cannot read it, so we're going to use this. And it is 50 grams, 90 meters, and it's 53% virgin wool and 47% acrylic. And it's made in Italy. And the color is 032. That's all they have for colors. But this is probably my favorite or second favorite yarn. I really like this yarn a lot. And I love the way the colors change. Okay, so the color of it, you can't tell from there, is a combination of pinks. It's got a little black, orange in it, green, and the way they come together as you knit isn't even. Some places have little thin strips and bigger strips, and then the colors just range in a really cool way that you don't know how they're going to be. I like that. But anyway, I can tell we're going to have some pink and green in this. So the first thing we do is we make a slip knot and put the working yarn through. And the loom, I can talk, I know I can. Okay, the loom that I'm going to use is a 5/8 inch loom. It's a Cindy Wood loom, and it has 44 pegs. Now, you might want the 48 peg loom, which Cindy Wood makes, or it's the Purple Nifty Knitter, or it's in the KB chunkier loom set, because the gauge I'm using is that gauge, the 5/8 inch gauge. And so I have a smaller head, and it's a fairly tight stitch, so the 44 will fit me. But normally on the Cindy Wood looms, I take smaller than the small adult head size. I take the youth 12-year-old size. That fits me the best. So I have a very small head, but I can always use these bigger looms when I do a tight stitch that draws in. But anyway, I'm going to use the 44 peg, so that might fit some of you with a smaller head, but you might need a 48 peg. And if you're going to use the Nifty Knitter set, you don't have much choice there. You go from the 36 to the 42, so whatever your head size is there. This can be done on any gauge. And this yarn is a chunky, but it's a fairly thin chunky. So you bear that in mind. If you were going to use a wider gauge loom, you might want to use a little bit thicker chunky than this, closer to a Charisma to get the same look. And if you're going to use a thin gauge loom, use a yarn, do some swatches till you get it to look the way this one does, or maybe yours will look really cool the way it is. Anyway, we're going to make the slip knot, and we just do that. Just do a twist and put the working yarn through, and we have a slip knot, and put it on the loom. And then the cast on we're going to do is, it's the one I use a lot. I have only 3, well, maybe 4 that I use, but this is the one I use the majority of the time. It gives a nice chain look, and I like it. You put your hook in, scoop up the yarn, and you have a little loop here. And then you just take that loop, put it behind peg 2, and snug this up. Put this loop behind peg 3, put the working yarn through, and snug it up. And you make a new loop when you do that. Okay, behind peg 4, snug it up. Next peg, snug it up. And I always check to make sure that it's tight, so it'll look nice, but it's still loose enough to go over the peg, and that's looking good to me. Behind the peg, tighten it up. Behind the peg, tighten it up. Behind the peg, tighten it up. Behind the peg, And we just keep doing that. Okay, so I'm just going to pause the video while I finish, because it's going to be boring watching me do this all the way around the loom, and we'll catch up when I'm close to the other side there. Okay, so we're getting close to the end here. So we just do this a couple more times, and then last peg here, and plop it on the peg here, like that. And we can just knit that over, and that will secure it. And we're all casted on. Okay, so now we just do, I'll tangle the yarn actually. Oh, I got a knot here. There we go. Okay, now we do owl eye for 2 rows. So owl eye is like that. You wrap over it again, and wrap the next peg. You rewrap that peg and go over the next peg. Okay, so another way to look at it, you're on peg 1, you rewrap peg 1 and wrap peg 2. Working yarns on peg 1 again, so you rewrap peg 1 and then wrap peg 2. And that's how you do owl eye. And then we're just going to go around the loom for 2 rows doing owl eye. If you need to look at owl eye more, I have lots of videos with owl eye in them, so you can do that. I'm not going to go over owl eye too much, but as you can see, you just whip along in it. Very easy stitch to do. You want to keep it loose. If you have trouble being loose, you can just pull it looser. So you can be the tightest knitter in the world and do owl eye loose, because all you have to do is do this. Loosen it. So very easy stitch to do that way. Okay, so do your 2 rows and we'll catch up when we're ready to do the next thing. Okay, so I've got my 2 rows of owl eye in, and the pattern of cobblestone is 1 row of owl eye and 1 row of purl over, which is a stitch Theresa stumbling over the name Theresa Higby invented. I think I need to have something to eat here. But anyway, Theresa Higby didn't invent it, but she created the stitch and named it that. And it's not a purl. It's actually done the knit way, and you don't put anything, you don't take it off the peg to do anything. So it's pretty easy to do. So anyway, it's 1 row owl eye, and we did 2 to get more of a foundation to get started. So we've done our owl eye, and now we do a row of purl over. So to do purl over, you go up like you're going to do a knit, and then you take your hook and you put it under the bottom stitch. So I'll come up here and have a look. You're under the bottom stitch, then you go and scoop up that top stitch like that, and just slip it over and pull it. And that's all there is to do. And you don't want to pull it too hard. You want to pull it just enough that you see these 2 little bars going here and here. You know, and it's got to be loose enough to be able to knit it over the peg. So you might want to test that. Can you get that over the peg? Okay, so there you go. That's how it should look for you. Okay, so working yarn there, under, scoop it up, and then pull it through and loop it over. Okay, slightly tightening it. Okay, there's a little gear at the bottom so you can actually slow down the video if you press that, and you'll be able to watch this in slow motion if that makes it easier. I'm gonna get really close here so you can see it, and I'm just going to scoop that yarn up from the bottom and then come up, scoop this yarn up. See, I'm pulling out a loop, and then make sure you're not twisting it, and you just slip that loop over and tighten. And that's all there is to it. Make sure it's not too tight. So under, scoop up the yarn, and I just slip it over like this. And I'm at the right tension because I'm used to doing it, but you'll have to practice to get that good at doing it. Right, so I just scoop it up like this. Okay, very easy to do. So, I'll do it slow again. Working yarn is on top. Put your hook through the bottom. Scoop that top yarn up and slip it over the top and tighten. Of course, whenever I'm working with a roving yarn, you can't just flip it over like that. You do have to move it over like that because that yarn's harder to work with, but it does give a beautiful look, and it would give a beautiful look to this stitch too. That's all you do. So from the bottom, scoop it up, and there it is over. And important to check your stitches. This stitch can get really tight if you don't keep it loose. You want to keep it loose so you can knit it over. But we alternate it with owl eye, so we have a way to loosen it up easily again. But you don't want to have to struggle either when you knit it. So, pretty easy to do, and you can just whip along. I love this stitch. I really love this stitch. It's just, it tightens up your work, and it just added to stitches, looks really nice. So by joining my owl eye with Theresa Higby's stitch, we have a whole new stitch here, and it is a cool one. One of my favorite stitches to do, and I've made a lot of stitches, is this one. Now it looks quite different in the round than it does as a flat panel, so I will show you the flat panel in a little while we get further along and we can compare the look of them. But it looks nice in both. And it's one of those stitches that looks quite different in the round than it does in a flat panel. If you didn't know it was the same stitch, you wouldn't even think they were related. Okay, so I'm just going to carry along, and when you're switching from owl eye to cobblestone, just make sure you complete your row. So make sure there's always 2 stitches on every peg for owl eye, and then everything will look perfect. That's all you have to do. And purl over is 1 stitch, so that's easy enough. So actually we're almost there, so let's go to the end of the row and I'll show you what I mean by always make sure there's 2 stitches. But see, I whipped around this loom doing this stitch pretty darn fast. So it's really not that hard to do. So anyway, hook under, scoop up the yarn, and slip it over the peg, tighten slightly, yarn, slip it over the peg, over the peg, over the peg. Okay, so if you were ending your owl eye row, you would do your owl eye. This isn't an owl eye stitch, but you do your owl eye, and then you wrap it and do it again. You'd always want to have 2 stitches before you do your next stitch. Same when you start off with owl eye. You're going to knit it over, and then you're going to have to knit it over again, see? Because you want to have 2 stitches on every peg. So now that we're going over, this is when you appreciate how loose you kept it, because it's always going to be a little harder to go over when you're going from the purl over to the owl eye in your rows. Now, if you should get mixed up and go, what was I doing, owl eye or purl over? Let's just take a look at it. It's easy to tell. With owl eye, you see a bar here, and although there's 2 loops on each side, they're on the other side of the peg. You'll see that? You just see the loops. The yarn is on the other side, but with the purl over, these little bumps are on the side. So you know this is a purl over row. So that makes it really easy to know where you are. If I had to put my work down, I got up and I went, what am I doing? What am I doing? Well, I would look at it and I would say, oh, my working yarn's here, and these are owl eye, and these are purl over, so I must be doing owl eye stitch. Right? So there you go. That tells you. So I'm just going to continue on for a while until we get enough. We can really look at it. We might be able to take a little peeky here at the stitch, but we can't see very much yet. So we just want to get a little further along. So I'm just going to put it on pause and we'll get a little further along. Okay, so I've got a little further along, and I think we're starting to see the stitch here now develop quite nicely. There it is. And just give it a gentle pull like we're stretching it out, and you see these kind of little square shapes are all the cobblestone stitch, and they have a lot of texture. So closer, and you can see this is one little square shape here, one little square shape here, kind of a square shape here, but yes, it makes quite a nice little stitch in the round, and it's got a very nice texture, and it's going to be pretty warm because it makes a really nice tight stitch, and on the other side looks like that, nice and smooth, having to be nice and smooth against your ears. Okay, so we're going to keep going till we get the width that you'd like your headband to be, or neck warmer. In my case, it's going to be a combination headband neck warmer. So I'll get it just to the width that I think will be the best, and then we will do the bind off. So start going ahead, and I will see you then. Okay, so here I am. I've got my cobblestone headband neck warmer as wide as I want it, and so I'm ready to bind off. We did the cast on, and we did 1 row of owl eye first, so we end with 1 row of owl eye, and then it's time to cast off when your desired width. So to cast off, you're going to take your yarn, I've already cut mine, and you're just going to wrap it around the loom 2 times and a little extra. maybe 2.5 times, something like that. And then you're going to use a needle and thread it on, or if you're the kind who likes to use a hook to do it, then you can take the hook and do the same motions with your hook. Okay, so here's where I ended my last stitch with owl eyes. So I'm going to go down the black peg and pull it, and I'm going to go, so I'm at the black peg, I'm going to go between the black and, so peg 1 and 2, and then I'm going to come in front of 2, and I'm going to go down 2, and then up 1, and then around, and go down 3, and always snugging it up 2, then around behind 3, and down 4. So we're always going down the new peg that we add into this bind off, up the peg before, and then behind the peg that we had just added to the new peg we're going to add, and then we go down that peg and up the next peg, or the peg that we had done before. And we're always snugging this up, and then we go behind the peg we just added in. We add in another peg by going down, and we go up the peg before, behind the peg we had added in, and then we add in a new one. Go down and up. So this is all pretty easy. It's just that easy. You add, you go behind the peg you just added in, add in a new one by going down, go back to the old one, then around, keeping it snug, and then down the new one and up the one before. And that's all we do. We just go right around doing that. Get a little closer and do one more. So go down the new one. Make sure that we keep the yarn, see that, behind like that, and then up the old one, behind the one we just did, snugging it up, down the new one, up the one before, snugging it up, going behind, and adding in the new one. So I'm just going to go ahead until I get back around here, and then we'll catch up again. Okay, here I am up to here. So I'm going to go around and down, and this was the peg that originally had the yarn coming out of it, and up and around, and this was the first one we did. So we go down it, and that's it, we're done. Whoop. And then you can wait and weave it all in, or you can do a knot or something, but it's done, and you'll have to secure that, that's all, but it's done. And so then I kept it nice and tight, so I'm going to work them all up close to the top so I don't have to pull on them too much when I take them over. And then I'm just going to pop them over, and they get loose once you start it, and then just take them all off. Okay, so I'll catch up to you when you've taken them all off. Okay, so I've got it off, and now I want to secure the yarn. So I'm just going to weave it in, and I make sure that I didn't tie a knot in it this time, because it's going to be on my head. So I don't want to have any knots at all. So then I'm just going to secure it here. By weaving it in. There we go. Okay, so I'll weave it in a little bit though, so I can secure it before I stretch out my stitches. And I'll weave it in more after. I just want to make sure that it doesn't come undone here. Okay, so here we go. Here it is. And then you're going to want to stretch out your stitches. So just stretch them out, mainly this way. Okay, and there you go. And there's what your cast on looked like. And here's what the bind off looks like. So it's kind of fuzzy. Let's turn it this way. There, you can see it better. But it's very similar. And they match up so that they're the same. And they both have stretch to them. So there you go. There's your headband. And I really enjoyed doing this because I just really loved the colors. So this is the way it went. So this is how the stitch looks. I'll do a close-up on it. That's how it looks in the round. It's a really beautiful stitch. I really like it. Very dense, so that's going to be nice and warm. And then this is really smooth in the back against your head. And I really enjoyed the way the colors were too. I have to say this is one of the most enjoyable things I've done in a long time. I really like it. And then you're going to play around with this a little bit because it was pulled tight on the loom. So, and that'll blend it in even better. So I usually just go around like this. Get it to start to look more like this one. There. And there you go, all done. I hope you enjoyed it. Do another close-up of the stitch. It really does look really nice. It has a really nice texture to it. And you turn it this way, you can see this detail like this on it. So yeah, really does look quite nice. And so if you were going to make a bag in the round, you'd have a nice tight bag with cobblestone. You can see here, you don't really need to line it. It's really a dense fabric on the back, and then it has the nice detail on the front. So okay, until we see you again, bye.